Hello and welcome to the Silent Evil Podcast. I'm Special Scott Combs,
I am Cameron.
and we're coming at you with Metro 2, also known as Metro Last Light, the second one of the whole Metro series here, where we further expanded on the story of all this stuff kind of going down in the post-apocalyptic world of Russia and all these areas. And I definitely will say, just going through this game, what I liked about this one is it kind of feels like everything sort of got that sequel dialed in this right here. Like I never got stuck. I never got super lost like in the first game where it's just like, dude, where the hell am I supposed to go? I never got any of those moments. I just felt like I went from scene to scene to scene to scene, and it was very, very, smooth paced and balanced out.
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it.
Yep. So this is my third run of this game, first run of Redux. And right off the bat, like you can just tell immediately how much more money went into this, like production value wise, animation wise, graphically wise, like everything about it is just like, it's just a tier above 2033. And even its story that it's trying to tell here is like hyper focused on what is going on in the metro at this particular time. It expands on Artyom quite a bit. It expands on the Spartans, like all the factional stuff that you were saying. Like, God, I wish 2033 had more of this. And I kept like hinting at like that's like Last Light is all about that. Like literally, No, I love it. I love Last Light. I think it's a cool game.
Yeah, no, I was definitely impressed. I still felt like I have a lot of questions, like kind of by the time like it was all said and done.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Sometimes there's a lot of games almost in this Xbox 360 era where like I really enjoy the experience, but sometimes like the story, it's almost like it takes a couple of moments for it to kind of sink in. I'll even say about Halo. Halo was always like that too. It's like I remember the first couple times playing through, it's like, well, that was really fun. I'm not exactly too sure what's going on other than space marines and space terrorists going on here. It took a moment for that one to kind of sink in as well too.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think like, especially right off the heels of 2033, like just gameplay wise, I mean, this is more or less the same exact game. Like it didn't really add too much. There isn't like a ton of new mechanics or anything like that. However, when you're looking at the original version of 2033 versus Last Light and whatever, again, you get like the hand wipe animation, like on your your gas mask and things like that. There, stealth kill, like all these types of things that were like implemented with the Last Light engine. They got backported back to 2033 or whatever. So we're kind of viewing it in a weird light at this point, because we are playing the Redux version, and it really does just streamline both those games together, more or less. Whereas way back when these games were first coming out and I had played them a handful of times back to back, the original games comparatively are like vastly different, I wouldn't say vastly, but like to an extent are like pretty different. They're both still, first person shooter narrative based, video games or whatever. Some horror elements sprinkled in and all that. But I think Last Light like really took the core of what 2033 was. What did we do good? What did we do bad? And just refined the living shit out of it and made this a really streamlined experience. So to your point about you didn't get lost, the pacing of this game is like fucking phenomenal. Like, I mean, there was a few nights there where I was playing it where it's like I would get home at 5, start playing about 5:30 or whatever, and like knowing that I had to make dinner in about an hour or so, and like looking back at the clock going, fuck, it's 9:30. Like I just get so lost in these games, So
Yeah, no, this one flowed really well. And then I also give it credit for being a sequel that didn't change, because this is also a time period. I remember like once again about that 360 era. That was when there was like the thing that like, oh, a video game can sell out. Like that notion wasn't necessarily there. Not saying that something didn't do that beforehand, but for the most part, games were always kind of what they were, and a series kind of stuck to its guns. And then all of a sudden you start having games like, I think one of the big ones was always Mass Effect.
Yeah.
Mass Effect 1 was so good. And even though they, in the original version, yeah, it does have a little bit of like kinks and, little, goofs here and there, but it doesn't matter because the game itself is such a masterpiece in itself. And then I remember when the second one came out, and the second one's still good, but like it literally felt like the game sold out. It was like, oh, it's not doesn't feel as much Mass Effect anymore. It feels more like it was trying to be Gears of War and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
I love Gears of War, but I play Gears for Gears. I played Mass Effect to be Mass Effect,
Right.
and the second one just tossed out the RPG element, tossed out the, the space, don't have to reload kind of guns and so on like that. And I was like, it kind of bummed me out a bit. And there's other games that do that too, especially a lot of first-person shooters when they sell out to become a Call of Duty like kind of clone in a sense.
Yeah.
You would see so many of them do that where it's just like they had great controls and everything like this, and then all of a sudden, like they wanted to use that Call of Duty controls and they wanted to have limited weapons and they didn't want to have, any bells and whistles and all this stuff. And once again, I like Call of Duty for what Call of Duty is, but when I play another game, I don't want it to be Call of Duty.
Yeah.
And I give Metro a lot of credit for that second one. It could have sold out just like that. It 100% could have came out and then felt like, hey, we should make this more Call of Duty like. Let's put in a multiplayer mode and everything like that. We'll do kind of like the Halo 4 thing for it. We're gonna switch it all around.
Yep.
And they don't. And I think that's so cool.
Yep. No, they didn't do any of that. I mean, like I said, they took the core of what was good about 2033, well expanded on it, both narratively and, I mean, even down to like weapons and whatnot. There's so many new weapons in this game too that are just fun to use, and they're variants of things we've already had. I mean, a machine gun is a machine gun is a machine gun, regardless how you cut it. But you get the AK, you get the weird one with the like side clip that slides through the the side or whatever. There's like the new like vector looking like submachine gun style guns and stuff like that too. So again, it's all just slightly improved over the previous game. And for how much I actually love 2033, I thought, this game, like, I think at this point has become my, out of the two that I have completed, 2033 and Last Light, like Last Light definitely is probably my favorite, I think, out of the two. I love the origin story of Artyom and his first journey of like leaving, his like first town and whatnot and getting to explore the metro and all that. This feels more like Artyom is like hardened in this game, like he's been through the ringer once, like he kind of knows his way around. There's still a lot of weird shit going on. And like I said, just mechanically, like everything just flows like so perfectly in this game, in my opinion. There isn't a ton of, like we talked about in Metro 2033, like random side paths that just lead to nothing. Like that still exists here for sure. Like, I mean, it's still there, but like it's not as pronounced, it's not as often and whatnot. And usually if you do take a side path, it's usually some branching path that brings you back to, like the mainline path, more or less. So yeah, it's similar with me. I never got lost in it at all. And then funny, midway through playing this game, I didn't recognize, or at least I forgot about the mechanic that does exist in 2033 as well. But like, you had mentioned how much you really like that bullet lighter thing and whatnot, and I was like, well, it gives you a little bit of light. You mostly use it to burn down cobwebs. I mean, like, but that was like its whole core function or whatever. And then I finally like recognized, I was like, oh, like when you have it out, like the smoke on it's going a particular direction, and regardless which way you turn, the flame bends that way and whatnot. And it's just another visual indicator without physically looking at a map, to go like, oh no, I got to go that way, and whatnot, which I thought was pretty neat for in-world stuff.
Well, once you mentioned that, I was like, I'm pretty sure like I noticed that in the first game when I was getting super lost and I was trying to figure out like how it was. I was like, I think the lighter is supposed to be like a compass thing, but then there's another compass, so I wasn't like 100% sure. I was like, but it does kind of indicate something. Of course, it kept indicating to go towards a door that wouldn't open.
Yeah,
that was my thing. I was like, he's wanting me to really go towards this door, but this door doesn't do anything. But I like how they have that there. It's almost kind of weird that they have that compass and then they have a regular compass down below. You think you just have just the flame compass would be kind of the way to do it. Just a subtle kind of like hint of where you're supposed to go next if you're kind of lost, which sometimes, a lot of the times in this game, I know is I'll have that compass open and I'll just be like, when you're on the surface area, it's just like, you look down there, like, I just run, just run. Don't waste your time, because I kid you not, just like in like the last game, there was a moment where I thought I was going to get locked out again when I was on one of those surface areas, and they never give you enough filters up there, and it's like one of those ones, like you might want to explore, but it's not worth it. There's not enough time to explore. Right. I came to the conclusion when you're on the surface and you have to wear a mask, you might as well just pull the compass out, don't shoot things, and just run as fast as you can until you get to the next checkpoint, because it does not help to try to look for anything.
this game loves putting narrative-based sections on the fucking surface when your gas mask is running out. Like, you're on a timer, and like you complained about it in the first game. It happens here too a ton. Like
where your character's like choking, like, and the guys are just talking. So let's just slow walk and talk, and they're like, it's like, dude, go
Yeah.
through the door,
Yep.
and that happened to me here, dude. I died like 15 times, and I was like, I kept dying from suffocating. Like I would not, this. I think it was when you're on the surface and you have to battle that bug thing, and the guys they're supposed to cross that log to go to the other guys, and then those bug things all kind of come out.
Yep.
And I could defeat the thing, but like I would end up suffocating right at the very end there every single time. It was just I can't remember exactly what happened because I found one
of your
filter.
reloads, you said that it refilled your
that's what happened. It just eventually at one point it actually like refilled my filter. That was what happened. It was just like all of a sudden, instead of having like 2 minutes to try to complete this section, I had 5 or something like that.
Yeah.
It was just like, dude, but of course that was another one too. It's like once I like beat that creature and everything like that, the guys just start casually talking as you're like rip your mask off and you're suffocating out here.
Yeah, unfortunately I never got into that situation. Now I can see how I've got a second run of this game, and I'm about halfway through the game at this point. Because again, the difficulty thing comes back. So first run, I go Spartan normal, which is basically like the Spartan mode basically means it's going to give you more health and ammo and, more resources essentially, whereas the survival mode takes away a lot of that. And I can tell you in just my half of a run through survival mode and I'm actually playing like on Survivor Hardcore or whatever, like, so where it
Ranger mode, is that what it is?
Yeah. and it eliminates all your UI elements, so you don't have anything on your UI like whatsoever and whatnot. It's insanely immersive, like it's so good. But at the same time, you never know how many bullets you have. You don't know how many ammo packs you have. You don't know, like any of these things and whatnot. And it actually even boils down to the fact of like interacting with objects and whatnot. So like flipping a breaker switch or whatever, like the prompt does not show up. So like if you hadn't played the game before and you started on that mode, good luck, because like there's so many things that are like baked into the environment that could be interactable or not,
See, that would be like, we've all known some of those guys that like to start the game off on the hardest mode possible, which mostly never works out because next thing you know, they get like, if they're lucky, like a third through the game, and then they can't get any farther, and then they never end up beating the game because they started off way too hard, thinking that was going to be the way to go.
Yep. Yeah, I was actually like pretty impressed the core differences of like the easiest mode difficulty versus the hardest and whatnot. And like the hardest mode, I would probably recommend if you're gonna do a hard mode, like don't do the Ranger hardcore that eliminates your UI. At least like do the hardcore mode where you still maintain all your elements of like your UI and whatnot, but it also reduces all your health and ammo and all that. That's probably like the best way to put Metro Last Light on the path to be like a survival horror game, because otherwise this literally feels like Doom in Spartan mode to me. Like I'm just running around, like have way too much ammo, way too much health. Like I'm never like in danger really, so like I had a ton of fun with the actual like mechanics of the game, like the shooting mechanics and whatever. So very cool.
Yeah, as long as it's not, you don't have filters. That's the only thing that like makes me wonder. I'm like, if that filter thing's even more of a pain in the ass on like the other modes, it's like I suppose ones I could barely get past that on the regular mode when you get stuck in those areas. You just don't happen to run across, which sometimes you'll see a certain section, be like, oh, there's like 3 filters sitting in this box. Well, if I didn't turn around that corner there, I might have never have saw that. But they don't give you a whole lot of time to be searching up there either. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'm trying to think of like any other like like any kind of major core element differences between 2033 and this. There's a couple new enemies that we'll get to when we kind of go more kind of section to section or whatever, start talking more deeply about the game. But there's a couple new enemy types that I thought were really cool. And monster design in general in this like is actually way more scary than the first game, in my opinion. Some of the framing of like where the game takes control, and whatnot, you don't really have control other than maybe a quick time event or something like that. But like a lot of the framing of some of that stuff um, right at the start of this game, like you basically like you're standing in a metro tunnel, you're with a bunch of other, guards or whatever, and you're guarding this section. And um uh basically like, you start seeing dark ones showing up again and whatnot, and next thing you know is like all your team turns into dark ones and whatever. And then like, Artyom just like goes, oh fuck, he pulls out his rifle and he just starts firing at these guys and whatever, you know. And as you're taking out these what you think are dark ones, it's actually your team. And you're just murdering your team and whatnot. It's fucking crazy. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed the design of a lot of the monsters, a lot of the encounters. There are so many sections where you hear about something or you see something in the environment, like the spiders that come pretty early on in the game and whatnot. And like you hear and see these things, but you don't physically see the monster until a bit deeper. So there's all this foreshadowing leading up, and it builds so much tension. And like I so much enjoyed that about this experience comparatively to 2033. And again, I think a lot of it is just budget, type things, like they set pieces that make you slow walk, make you fucking like look at your environment and whatever. And you hear the growls and the screeches, deep in the metro. And like, it's just, there's so many cool, like tension building sections of this game that I thought were rad.
No, I do agree. I think the creatures are a little bit more better design in this one. There are some cooler ones where the first one, like, they're not bad, but they seem kind of like generic. It's like, oh, mutant rat, mutant,
Right.
like, bear looking thing, mutant, which they are kind of still cool, demon flying thing,
Mm-hmm.
but that's kind of like what they were. Where in this one, you get like kind of like the cool, like crawdad like creatures and so on. Yeah, you get the spider rooms and everything like that. They throw a bunch of neat ones in there just to kind of add up even more. And I think that's just the thing too. It's just stacking on it. Because mostly video games, like sequels are mostly always where things get the most dialed in,
Yeah.
So it always kind of makes sense, because as long as you stick with your guns on like the first one and then kind of go in the second one, just improve anything that was off. Don't try to become a different game in that process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that's always the key thing.
Well, and it makes me really curious. I'm so glad that we're going to play through the totality of the series because this is where I stopped at. I've played a hair of Exodus, I've played a little bit of Awakening and whatever. And then, of course, we have the 5th game coming out later this year. I think that Last Light is definitely like it's 4A games firing on all cylinders when it comes to streamlined, very narrow, storytelling and whatever. Just to have like a narrative based first person shooter. I think that they absolutely killed it here. Where I am curious is the next game, because they take us out of the metro at this point. I mean, like I'm sure there's still metro sections and whatever, but they take us out of these tight little corridor, narrow like, level designs to more semi-open world and whatnot. And I'm so curious to see, because there's so many sections in 2033 and Last Light that just and it's even in like the loading screens and whatnot, where you see Artyom's journey of just section to section to section, and it shows the line as you're drawing, through the metro tunnel and everything. I'm so curious to see how they pull off a strong narrative with the semi-open world. I very much assume that you still have to do things in order, but inevitably there's probably going to be sections where you can go do A versus B, first, and like, and however that works and whatever. So I'm really curious to see like the evolution of what this becomes, because again, this game in particular, I don't know, it's like another Half-Life experience for me. It's just such a perfect, just narrative driven first person shooter, that's trying to tell a story that I think we're very successful at.
Yeah, well, and I think one of the main things that makes that work really well is that they literally have the author guy on board kind of writing the story for Last Light. Where so many things like this, they kind of go, okay, thanks for the material, but we got it from here. Let the professionals take it over.
Right.
They pull those cards and stuff like that. But I think it's cool that you have him on there to really add to it. And I will say Metro Exodus was the only one that beforehand, I remember I did start that one up whenever I got it, many years ago by now. I remember this was the first thing I thought when I was playing that one. It was like, oh, it feels like it's Fallout. That was the one it really felt like. It was like, and I really assumed that the game was going to be like a Fallout just by the way that it started off.
Yep. No, I look forward to the next chapter of Artyom, really. I mean, because like I said, like I know 2033 and Last Light pretty well at this point, because I have completed them so many times. but Exodus in particular, now that, especially with like a complete refresher of all the events that happen in this game and whatnot, um, like Miller, for example, like we met Miller in the first game, in Polis and whatever, and he's the one that essentially puts us on the journey to D6,
Mhm.
and now that we're in Last Light, like Miller is such a key component of all this. He's essentially like the leader of the Spartans. He's the one that's telling you what to do. He's the one that puts you on this journey to go. We'll get to story stuff here in a bit, but he's essentially the key part that puts you on this journey for Last Light. And then all the other characters that come on top of it, because Khan comes back. We meet, Anna, and like
Mhm.
the new character Pavel, that's sporadically throughout this whole experience and whatever. Like there's so many good characters that I know exist in Exodus just because of the start of that game that I've played probably 20 times over at this point. I'm so excited to see like the evolution of all these characters and whatever. So it should be pretty good. So
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's even interesting in this one too because there's a couple of like beyond like your standard like Half-Life storytelling where you're seeing it kind of just like first person narrative, almost like it's a VR game that there's a couple of these cutscenes that start off where it shows pretty much Artyom as a young lad,
mhm.
and it's almost before the bombs have gone off, and he's going like on a train ride and whatnot, and it's kind of this is sort of leading into him and his ability to sort of talk to these dark ones and so on like that. And the whole time I'm kind of going through this game, I'm thinking, what is exactly a dark one? Is it supposed to be humans that got affected by said radiation explosion, something on the surface when that all went off, or is it something like aliens they're almost like on Earth and they're like, "Yo, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
you just blew up everything."
Yep.
Like that
Yep.
kind of theory that people always have, like, the reason why nuclear bombs haven't gone off is because the aliens are sort of watching over.
Yep. Yep.
Well, wait a second here in Metro, but at the same time, I'm still at the end of this game. I'm not 100% sure what the dark ones kind of are.
Yeah.
And I was even when I'm doing a little bit of research, it seems like that's never really ever explained, even in the books or anything like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I think that it is heavily implied that the Dark Ones are humanity post-apocalypse. They're the ones that have mutated and been able to survive the surface, more or less. So Artyom's like, these some of these early scenes, that show Artyom like you just said, as a child with the gas mask, like walking through the metro, and he's like looking up and like seeing like holes to the surface and whatever, and then finally making it to that one gate and being able to like go out into the surface with his friends and whatever, and a dark one coming up to him, like touching him, like doing telecommunication, like through or psychopathic type communication, whatever. um so like a lot of that is unfolded throughout the totality of this game, and a lot of it comes to like a massive plot point of this game is like we went to D6 in 2033. We set off the nukes, we sent them to the botanical gardens or whatever to essentially annihilate all the dark ones and whatnot, is like the canonical ending. The start of this game is essentially Khan coming back, from the first game basically, and telling Artyom like, hey, there's still one left. We need to go. Like, you fucked up in the last game. Like, we
Yeah.
need to go find this one.
You gotta go kill the boy. Go kill the child.
Yep. And Khan is like, again, like he's kind of, I don't know, like the spiritual walker of the metro, that he presented himself as in the first game, and it's very true here too. So the game essentially like starts, you're in D6. The Spartan group had taken over D6. Miller's there, Khan's there, and whatnot. And like you get woken up by Khan. It's kind of similar to the first game where you just kind of like wake up in a cot, like after this crazy scene of the metro thing where you kill all your friends and everything. So you like wake up in the cot. And Khan's basically like, come on, we got to go talk to Miller. There's still a dark one out there. We got to go capture it, more or less. So this is where you kind of were walking your way through D6 or whatever, and then eventually you make it to Miller. Miller essentially like tells Khan to fuck off and to leave, essentially, and puts you in touch with Anna, his daughter, and is just like, you're going with Anna to go kill that fucking thing. go, and that's like essentially like the start of the game is like go kill the Dark One, the last one.
Yeah,
Meanwhile, Khan's sitting there with a bleeding heart, going like, "No, please, like you fucked up the first game so bad." So,
yeah, and then of course Anna doesn't like have any faith in you. She's like, "Come on, Rabbit, you
yep,
are a stupid idiot, Rabbit."
yep,
You're like, "Thank you, thank you." This is providing a lot of extra confidence, and you keep referring to me as a rabbit.
yeah, yep. Yeah, dude, and I love the start of this game, because it directly ties into. So I've did not complete all DLC, but at least I did all the named DLCs for all the characters and whatever. So like there's three individual like DLCs. There's one for Anna, one for Pavel, and one for Khan.
Mhm.
And the very first mission, so you go out to the surface and Miller sends you after Anna or with Anna or whatever to go find this Dark One. And did you do the DLC? Because it
I
ties in right here.
Yeah, I played those are the only ones I did try were those
Okay.
ones there because it seemed like the other ones seemed neat, but they almost seemed like they were more like challenge type things. Like if
Yeah.
you want to, do that, I was like, okay. And we got to point this out really quickly. This game has the most hidden DLCs. I don't know why they put them so like, and they're not like ridiculously deep into the menus. Like you got to put codes in or something like that. Like it's
No.
like an old game, but the fact that they put these because you remember like you mentioned the DLCs. I'm like, well, I don't think I have those on my version because it's like I did not see those on the screen. You see start, continue,
Yep.
scene selection and options. That was like the only thing I saw there. And then you're like, no, they're in the chapter selections. So then I went and looked, and then in the chapter selections, even when you're looking at that, like it just says extras. Like
Yeah.
that's like one of those ones. Like generally it's like a lot of games I never even go to the chapter selection. Unless it's like something like a Resident Evil 5 where like you like replay like a certain chapter because you're gonna have some unlockables or something like that. A lot of times it's mostly you just play a game from start to finish. Like you don't use the chapters unless your game like freezes or something like that. You need to go back one. Or you get kind of screwed over, or your gas mask doesn't work, maybe.
Yep.
But
Yep.
so it's like I feel like who the heck would have been looking in there to find that? That's such a weird place to put it.
I would say like they definitely should have redesigned the user interface for this, especially with the Redux version. I have a feeling that probably as the game was out and then DLC 1 launched, DLC 2 launched, DLC 3 launched, like as that came out, it probably made sense in that regard because you would just go to chapter select or whatever, like and that's maybe why it was designed that way. But I'm wholly with you. It should totally just have a
its own
new
menu.
game, continue, DLC.
Yeah, bonus content, whatever you want to call it. Like, yeah, I just thought that was so weird because if you did not mention that, I would have never even looked, would not even have questioned it or something like that. It just, it's not like it even pops up like once you beat the game or anything like that. Like, hey, you should play the other missions.
Yeah. And what I really liked about the DLC is that it really just kind of gave extra flavor context for each of those characters, and right here, right at the start, so like you're with Anna, you get to the surface, you go to, and basically like you split up at one point. She's there just to be Overwatch for you, she's just a sniper or whatever, and you kind of like go down in this like little valley looking area or whatever. Meanwhile, she's overwatching, and you find the Dark One, you find the Dark One or whatever, and you start chasing it. Now on the flip end, so that's Artyom's perspective or whatever. But in the DLC, as you're playing as Anna, like you physically climb that tower, like you get up to the top, you have your sniper, and like you see Artyom down there, like walking around and whatever, and you're protecting him the whole time. And to have like that dual perspective, like especially the way that I did it, because obviously I played the regular game first, went to the DLC way later, and like didn't make that connection immediately of like, oh, that's the start of the game. Like it wasn't until a little bit later on when Anna takes that first shot at the Dark One or whatever, and then everything clicked, and I was like, oh fuck, this is the start of the game. Oh, that's Artyom. Oh, that's like okay, that makes more sense, and blah blah blah. So anyways, I just thought those tie-ins were really cool because it also happens with Pavel. And then Cons is a bit of an offshoot. It doesn't I don't think that really happens in Last Light, or even if it does happen in Last Light. Artyom's just in a different metro tunnel, so you never see this as the player, but it kind of explains what happens to Con in between certain sections and whatever. So, but
yeah, no, I found those parts really cool. And strangely, the other thing too, I thought about even in Metro, Something that would have been pretty neat in here, especially for the time period that it kind of came out, because once again, I always look at that Xbox 360 era is like probably the most golden age of first person shooters,
Mm-hmm.
like of all time. Like I think a lot of the stuff in there is just so dialed in that time period. But one thing I feel like this game almost could benefit pretty darn well if it was a split screen co-op game.
Oh,
I
sure.
know that might have taken since it is kind of that heavy narrative. And sometimes that's the one where it's just put like a guy, like there's just a unnamed soldier. You don't have to do the thing where the story Gears was great because the story tied in very well to player one and player two, which there's like it was designed to be a co-op game, to be split screen and all kinds of stuff like that. But I feel like it's one of those ones I'm like, once again thinking like Resistance as well, except for Resistance 2 for some dumb reason didn't have co-op in it. 1 and 3 did, but not the second one. I thought that was a strange choice. But I just picture, I'm like, man, this would, I picture it back to them, I'm like, dude, is a split screen co-op game, man, that would have added even more extra layers to this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I'd be really curious to see if they do anything with 2039, like the new game coming out. If they do anything like that. Because from what I understand, 2039 is going to be like a fresh new experience. It has nothing to do with Artyom or it's just basically the same universe. So I'd be really curious to see if they ended up doing something like that, because I think this universe in general, like if you were to do a survival MMO, like this universe would be fucking sweet. So
well, it's funny too, because like in all like both games, I noticed when I was looking them up on like Wikipedia and everything like that, they always talk about like, we really wanted to try for a multiplayer, and then we just decided no, so it's like, but they said that both times, like, because it almost feels like this game's not designed to really have a multiplayer, like that kind of multiplayer, like versus type stuff, That's where I feel like just like the co-op would have actually been kind of neat. I know that always sometimes is a little bit tough on certain games being able to run properly, but and there's something about it's got to be split screen co-op. Like the other kind of co-op is just not exactly the same experience.
Yeah.
If it's fine if you do a LAN, if you want to go that kind of old school, but like, like online co-op is just always more like it's like a Band-Aid kind of thing. Like it's fine, but you're not getting that like person to person kind of interaction.
Yeah. Yep. No, I definitely. Yeah, I could definitely see. I don't know how I don't know how co-op would really work. You would have to have, it would almost have to be like Halo, where you have two chiefs, like basically.
Yeah, well, that's how I feel. You just have like, I feel like you just, because this game's not designed. You just have a generic soldier that just follows you around, kind of like in a sense. Yeah. I think that would just be the way, and nobody talks to him.
Yep.
Just and even the two chiefs, like I always thought that was the best way to go about it. Like you don't need to always explain to me why this is happening. It's a video game. Yeah, I don't need everything to make total sense. Just make it fun. But like I always think about, because like because this game's like borderline like 360, and then all of a sudden like it's like only like a year later I think they do the Redux version on PS4 and Xbox One. So it's like I think about, because like at this time period, you still had all the Gears, they were all split screen. For the most part, Call of Duty always had some form of split screen in it. Halo still had split screen. They hadn't screwed the pooch on that one yet. So like it still falls in that great era. Army of Two, there was just so many of them.
Man, Army of Two. I forgot about that.
that was a great series.
Yep. Yeah,
the third one was kind of weird because for some reason you had like your two, once again, it was one of those co-op games where like the characters really stood out like Gears of War, but then all of a sudden I remember in the third one, like player two was like now the bad guy or something like that. Like, well, this is weird.
Yep.
That'd be like hunting down Dom or something for some reason in Gears of War, like he didn't carry his beer tab or something like that.
Yep. So, I'm trying to think of anything else to really talk about before we kind of dive into like story beats. There's really, I mean, again, like this, if you listen to our last episode, like it explains a lot of what leads into this experience. This is very right off the heels of the first game. It takes place about a year afterwards or whatever, but right off the bat, like I said, as Khan wakes you up to go talk to Miller or whatever, I don't know if you took some time and listened to Spartan soldiers throughout that whole D6 area and whatnot as you're on your way to Miller. But again, from last episode on this, you were just like, man, like I wish they would lean into the factional stuff quite a bit more, and like, you know, we could learn more about these things and whatnot. All we really learn about at this particular moment in this section and whatnot is just like there's a bad fucking war going on, and like shit's about to go down. Everybody is now like aware of D6 and whatnot, but nobody really knows where it is, you know, like in terms of the Reds and the Reich and all that. And it's just there's so much foreshadowing throughout its first hour, you know, about the Civil War that is going on. Which inevitably like evolves into something else that like as a first time player back when I first played this game, like I didn't see the twist on this story like at all coming. Now that I've experienced it, there's so much foreshadowing leading up to like what the Reds are actually doing in this story and whatnot, you know, that we'll get to. But anyway, so yeah, lots of war going on, lots of conflict. Humanity has actually reduced quite a bit more even over the last year, you know, since because I think there was like 40,000 people at the start of 2033, and it's somewhere down around like 25,000 at the start of this game and whatnot. So lots of people are dying. lots of shit's going down.
Well, and what is it? You got a three-way. It's kind of like there's the Rangers, the Reich, and the Reds. So pretty much the Rangers are generally, in a sense, your good guys. And in a sense, the people that are trying to hold on to humanity. The Reich's just like this, like, you know, post-war, like fourth Reich.
It's literally
Nazi
the fourth
group.
Reich.
Yeah. And then the Reds are just the Communist Party that's trying to come back. They're like, you know what? This is, you know, it's been a long enough time. We can kind of come back here and so on. And this game definitely does, because I felt like the first game sort of touches on that, but just so briefly, where you're like, that's a cool concept. I wonder why that was like literally like a level. It felt like there was one level for the Reich and one level for like the Reds. There probably was a little bit more than that, but that's how quick it felt like it went through, which I did like in this one here, because it does give like a block section for each one. I still kind of want to go even deeper on that, but the Reds actually get a lot in this one. The Reich's kind of there just as like a pass-through segment that you kind of have to get through, which is what's going to lead us into our Reds story in a sense and see what they're all up to. But
I found it weird that the Reich in this game, like they're still bad guys, quote unquote, but they're kind of the neutral party in this experience. like they're really like they're bad, but they're not that bad. You know, like,
it's probably because we're in like Russia area, so like in a sense, it's going to seem like the Rangers and like the Reds are going to feel like extremely different from each other. Where like the Reich's going to seem a little bit in the dead center, because it's like it's not really the Soviet thing, you know. And the Reich's just, they almost just kind of they're just sort of there. You know, it's like the alternative party that you could go for.
Yep. But I love this very first scene. So like after we hunt down the Dark One and all that, eventually we get captured by the Reds. In this scene of Artyom like on his knees, there's a couple you know, like, is it the Reds or is it the Reich? I can't remember.
You get captured by because it's the Reich first, because you get stuck with the Reich.
The Reich.
Yeah.
And like, you know, you're down on your knees. There's 3 other people around you or whatever. There's 2 soldiers in front of you. And obviously one is like a high up, you know, something or other, because he's wearing his little cap and whatnot, you know, like, and they're talking to the first prisoner, and they're like, you know, like hunched over him and whatnot. And this is where we start to learn about like they're mass exterminating people that they are considering mutants. And whatnot, and they like literally pull out like this head measuring device and like, you know, like measure this dude's head, and he's just like, I swear I'm not a mutant, and he's just like 7.8.2 over, kill him. You know, just fucking blows it off and shit. It's just like, oh my god, you know. But this is where we properly meet.
It's like modern, or I guess a futuristic eugenics program they got going on here.
Yep. So we're hearing about mutants and stuff, you know, and then like there's a couple of Red soldiers next to us too. The first one is basically like, you know, I forgot what the Reichs are asking him, but they're asking him something to like basically give up where the Red's location is or whatever, and he's like, I will never talk, you know, and then they kill his ass. And then this is kind of where we meet Pavel for the first time, and Pavel is kind of, I don't know, like he's like Bourbon from the first game. He's kind of your guide, you know, like more or less.
He's gonna get you out of this Reich section, you know. He seems like a good guy at this point, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess you have nobody else you can trust realistically. You're literally in like an internment camp kind of thing
Yeah.
underground. So you're just trying to break free.
Yep. And it is fucking oppressive. This whole area is so oppressive, dude. And I love like, it's so inevitably like you kill those two soldiers, like you're with this character named Pavel at this point, and you're sneaking around with him trying to get out of the Reich's, compound or whatever. And just like as you're crawling through like some of the like air ducts and stuff like that, and like I don't know if again, like a lot of this game has so much flavor text if you just stop and listen for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
On my second playthrough, on my hardcore playthrough, like I took the time to like really sit and listen to what all these soldiers are talking about and whatnot. And they're basically just talking all kinds of shit about the Reds and how the Reds are trying to get to D6. They know the Spartans are there, like they're trying to find it themselves. They want to overtake all the weapons and blah, blah, blah. And that there's some weird mutation that's going on that's like, more or less mutating people to the effect like we need to mass murder everybody, is kind of what we're hearing about. And just a lot of that, you're hearing individual like Reich soldiers talk about like, oh, I had to kill that family yesterday and like feel fucking awful about it, and like listening to their story about like the horrific shit they've had to do for their faction and whatnot, super good, super good. So a lot of that, man, I wish this game had more of it. Like it exists, you just really got to take the time to like sit down and
Yeah.
listen and consume. And
No, that does kind of make sense because this is one of those games it's not told like it, because one game I could kind of compare it to also as well as like the Wolfenstein, like the modern ones, but those ones are told almost more cinematically, where a lot of the stuff you see kind of happens in cutscene and things of that nature and so on like that. Where this one definitely is like you sort of stop, listen, you look for those little notes on the ground and so on like that, which they always come up at the same time somebody's talking. So it feels like it's you get like a cluster. Yeah. Let me pause your conversation halfway through so I can read this.
Yep. And then probably like, especially on a second run through this on my hardcore run, I love this scene too of again, you're following Pavel, and he finally like breaks into like the common area or whatever, and like you're walking through this crowd of Reichs, listening to their leader. He's like standing up on top of this fucking podium, like doing his big, Nazi speech and whatever. And like all these fucking soldiers are just wah, wah, with their right arm, just like, like doing these chants and stuff like that. And you essentially like get to like the front of that line, and then fucking Pavel just pulls out a fucking pistol and just fires it into the air. And it's like, what do you do? Like, why? Like, we're literally sneaking through. And he just pulls out this pistol and starts firing in the air. And then the chase scene that happens at this point, because you just have to sprint, at this point or whatever to get out of this section and get into the metro tunnel. Again, high quality, so much more production put into this. Everything is just firing on all cylinders, and it makes you like, I don't know, like I was like panicked at this point. I knew I wouldn't die. I knew it was kind of scripted events and things like that, but like the feelings that it was giving me is just like, oh fuck, like God, we actually got to get out of here. Like there's a lot of bad shit going on.
We got to book it now. Yeah,
I thought it was really cool.
So you got to kind of break free. And this is also too where I think you first start getting like the enemy combat of this game as well too, because once you kind of get past this point, you get your guns back, and then you're going to start sneaking through and kind of blasting your way through some of these Reich guys, which I will say I did kind of learn. This is one of those games where it's like you can go multiple ways. You can sneak through, turn out lights, and do all that stuff, which is pretty neat. But I also realized you could just back yourself into the corner, fire a round off, and they will all continuously run towards you until they're just about all gone, except for maybe one straggler.
Yeah. No, they did. Yet again, it's just like, I think it's of that era is like our artificial intelligence for pathing and for, things like that, because you're absolutely right. There's so many points where because I tried again, this whole run, I was playing sneaky. There's actually achievements. Turn off 40 lights without shooting them. Like there's achievements.
I got that achievement. So, because ironically, even if I did that thing where I would just turn off lights anyways, like like I was energy conscious or something like that. Like, oh, there's a light on, I'll turn that off. That off. And because sometimes the only thing about like nothing's worse than when you're sneaking and you get almost all the way through, and then one guy happens to see you, or like you go to shoot him in the head or something like that, and he just steps forward the second you pull the trigger, so you miss, and then all hell breaks loose.
Yep.
Because that's the one thing, though, is like these guys, though, like the second they know where you are, they all know where you are. It's not one of those kind of games where you can technically re-hide or anything like that.
Yeah.
And as I said, they keep running towards you. It's not like Fear. Fear had that like a thing where like the guys like realized if you were doing that and like trying to lead them into there, they would stop, and then you'd have to go find them instead, which I thought was kind of an interesting mechanic. Or they would come by and they would run around the level and come to the other side of you, which that was a part of the Fear element, I guess.
Yep. God, I hope we play that one day too, man. I want to.
Yeah, that is a pretty cool like. It's weird because it's sold more as like a heavy like survival horror, but it feels more like it's just a straight up action game. But like, it does have a lot of cool elements in that one.
Yeah. No, I have. That's another one. I have the whole Fear series. I've never completed any one of those games. I played all of them at some point, but I've never actually.
I have that same thing too. I have every single one, and I've only actually played the first one. So.
Oh really? No.
Yeah. Mostly if I haven't played if I didn't end up finishing the first one, like I guess I won't even try this 2 or 3 yet.
Yeah.
But they always been kind of interesting. But I always liked that mechanic that they had in there too, of this like the guys would stop after once they kind of saw what you were doing. They're like, okay, we're not gonna do that anymore. We're in Metro. Those guys, it's just best to just like park yourself against a back corner. Okay, nobody's gonna come from behind me. And just have them run up the stairs, grab some ammo, rinse and repeat, and the music cue ends, checkpoint it comes up. Okay, we're good.
Yeah, and I'd say like, because the game starts off really heavy with human combat and whatnot. However, like I think that this game actually has quite a bit more mutant combat than the first game does. In its totality of its play experience and whatever. You fight so many different types of shit in this game, dude. Like, because like one of the next major beats that comes up. So eventually, like we make it out of the Reich's compound or whatever. We get separated by Pavel at some point. And this is where we're kind of like on our own. And the one that like I have a note on, it's called Torchlight. And this is it's the mission called Torchlight. And this is the one where everything goes insanely dark. And I think this is where spiders first start to show up and whatever. And a whole new mechanic shows up. Where so with these spider type creatures, they kind of look like a hybrid of like, they're kind of like a spider-ish body, but also kind of have like a tail that looks like a scorpion type thing. It's kind of like intermeshed in between both of those. And but you can't like damage the thing with a weapon. Like you just have to shine a light on it, whether that be like kiting it into an area to turn on a light or whatever, and then it'll flip upside down on its belt or on its back or whatever. I would still shoot at it, but I couldn't really tell if it was actually doing damage per se, because the other thing you can do is use your headlamp and like just focus on it with your headlamp, and then eventually it would flip over and die that way too. There's an achievement for this as well if you do a certain amount of them.
Oh, interesting. And these aren't the same ones, because there's the ones like where you have to when their belly gets exposed, you can really walk up to them and press R3 and just stab them there, and it does a one-hit kill.
Oh, you can. Oh, see, I didn't even know that. Is that what happens when they flip?
Yes, when they flip upside down, you can walk up and just stab them, because that was how I was killing them.
Interesting.
So you would shine your light on them, they would flip over, and then you would stab them, and then you could.
I guess I never got close. I never got close enough to try that. No, I just kept like just shining my flashlight on them, and eventually they would just die.
Interesting.
Just by the light itself, So
they got the last light.
Yeah, very much the last light.
Well, that's interesting, because I don't think I killed a single. I need to try that then. I didn't realize you could kill them just by shining the light. I thought that just made them flip over.
Yeah. No, I killed plenty of them that way. And like I said, there's an achievement for, I want to say it's 20 or maybe 30 or something like that of them, like just to get them to flip on their back. There's some achievement for that I noticed. So
now, is this, I can't remember, was this also the part 2 where you're on the little cart and you're driving through areas, and then you got to get off every once in a while and go through a couple different rooms and then get back on the cart and keep driving?
Yep. Yeah, that's part of this too. Yeah. And yeah, that I can't remember, because like I think you were with Pavel initially on that, and then that's where you guys get. I think that's where you get separated at some point in this section. So, anyways, like you break off from Pavel and you continue on this journey or whatever. But there's a lot of on rail sections in this game too, like where you like sit down in a rail car or like something on a machine gun like turret type thing or whatnot. And I was using mounted guns constantly throughout this whole experience, like. And even to talk about like one of the DLCs. So this takes place. Actually, I'll wait until the end of the game when we get to the end of the game because it ties in pretty heavily with the end. But yeah, a lot of what happens kind of beyond this point is we are just learning more and more and more about the Reds, the Right, the Rangers, all trying to maintain control of D6. We're kind of learning about some like, again, with when we were in the Reich, camp earlier and they're doing the head measurements and whatnot. We're hearing about all these like different things about mutations within humans and people like it, basically being infected, and whatnot. And I'm trying to remember exactly like where a lot of the key pivotal points actually happen.
Well, I was just gonna say this real quick is when we're on that like on rails little cart part where you're pushing the cart through and you gotta go through sections. There's a part where you come across like a group of like stragglers in a sense out there, and they talk about they're like, oh, the right took a bunch of our family members and we can't get them back, and hopefully you can do that. Which I thought that guy was going to give you something. I remember driving that cart all the way back over there just for him not to say a single damn thing. So, but like you go through and it's kind of, I actually thought that was kind of a neat part though, because like it doesn't give you like, here's an objective, go do this or anything like that. You're just kind of like, oh, okay, sure, whatever, old man. Let me jump back in my cart thing and don't question how I got this. And drive off. And then like all of a sudden you get to an area and you see some soldiers walking around and you hear like a lady screaming and everything like that. So you're trying to sneak in and so on like that. And trying to save people. Of course, I didn't save that first lady because I was trying to sneak in. I thought that would be the better way, but they killed her real fast. So I was like, oh, I should have busted in there and just blasted them. So, and that's what I did for the next ones. I just kind of went in and just kind of blasted the guys as quickly as possible and saved everyone else.
Yep. So this is another. This game has a ton of it. I only really noticed it like in one or maybe two sections throughout the totality of the first game, but this game has a ton of like A/B choice options that aren't apparently A/B choice options when it comes to karma in this game. like yeah. That's one of the very first ones is like there's I think it's back in the Nazi compound or whatever. But there's a general laying in a bed and you break through this door or whatever and he like just sits up, and he doesn't have any weapons or anything and he's just holding his hands up just going like, please don't kill me, please don't kill me, please don't. I immediately just just take his ass out and keep running and whatnot.
That's just a video game reflex. That's why like a light gun game you end up shooting all the innocents accidentally because
something moved, they gotta kill it. But this is something that I recognize too is like by killing that man, there's like a quick little screen UI thing that happens where it kind of like goes black white, kind of like fades in and out real quick. And I was like, I wonder what that means. Karma system. So there is a very defined A/B option for the end here, and it's not really an option. It's just like however you progress through the game and how you handle certain things and whatnot. Like there was another one that I can bring up that I remember. The child that's missing his teddy bear. Did you ever do that? Did you ever find that teddy bear?
I don't think I even found that child. I don't remember that part for some reason.
So I found this comes a little bit later when we actually make it to Venice or whatever. So Venice is essentially like the new Polis for us in this game. Like the whole point of 2033 is to make it to Polis. A big portion of this game is to make it to Venice. So,
and not the Venice you're thinking.
No,
you're not going to Italy or anything like that, or California.
No. Yeah, no. No. That's where that character exists. It's some child and his mother, and this kid's like crying about it, missing his teddy bear toy or something like that. So you have to go and find it basically and bring it back to him. So, but there's a whole bunch of these throughout the game, and a lot of them are just based off like help the character or not, kill the character or not, something like that. but again, like I thought it was actually pretty interesting that you do have choice, in a handful of those sections. So
Yeah, I do kind of like how it's also light too, like how it doesn't really even tell you about it. Like you could pretty much play through this game and not even notice that there was
yeah,
any of those kind of karma choices. It's not like Fallout where like it blatantly tells you at the bottom of the screen,
yeah. Plus
like it's
one.
some yeah, plus one karma or plus negative, and then some of the stuff's kind of like I always felt like even in Fallout, it's like okay, well that's based upon like how you think about a situation, like that some of those things aren't black and white choices, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So,
Mm-hmm.
so sometimes that's kind of there where this one kind of makes sense. It's just like either you help the person or you don't help the person, or you kill the guy who's like unarmed, or I think you could knock him out because I kind of realized later you could knock those guys out, but I
Yep.
didn't know that at the time, so that's why I shot him.
Yeah. Yep.
I didn't realize there was another mechanic in there that I could
Yeah.
do that.
It actually makes me wonder if regular soldiers, because you have that option too in stealth, you can kill them or you can knock them out. Now, I'd be curious if that ties into the karma system too,
Yeah, because I
because
kind of wonder if you could do a run where you almost do like almost next to no kills,
I assume you can.
kind of like Metal Gear Solid, how you can almost
Yeah,
go through
like a
and pretty much
pacifist run. Mhm.
take out everybody with the tranquilizer or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, I'd be willing to bet that has something to do with it. But eh, ultimately, because like the AB ending that you can get or whatever, I don't know. Like, I was trying to think back through my 3 playthroughs prior to that too. I don't think I've ever gotten the canon ending in this game. I think I've always gotten the ending that I've got. Where we'll talk about it when we get there. But anyway,
Well, it seems like it's kind of like the first one too. It's like unless you like have a strategy guide sitting next to you, good luck trying to get the other ending.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
it's just like too many of those things are just not really well defined about like what you need to do or what needs to happen here to get it.
yeah. Yeah, and I think that's part of why Exodus confused me so much when I first played it, like way back in 2016 or whenever that game actually came out, um, is because of my ending in Last Light. Is I didn't know at the time was the non-canonical ending or whatever. So anyway, like I said, we'll get to that point, and I'll make those connections at that time. Um, but anyways, yeah. I think another massive piece of this that I so much enjoyed is just weather effects in general. Every time you go to the surface, there is so much more wind and rain and just wetness and like just everything about the environmental design in this game is just chef kiss. It's
Yeah, and you
so
got to
good.
clean your mask off every once in
Oh,
a
dude,
while too.
it's so good. It's so good. I love getting into heavy firefights too with gas masks on and just like your face is just getting covered in blood and you're just constantly wiping it away while mowing down people with a shotgun and shit. Like, oh dude, it's so good. It's so much fun.
Yeah, no, like a lot of times just that gas mask like look and feel and how like it affects your screen and everything like that. Even to this day, it's like one of those ones that this game could be like 20 years old and it's still like that feature stands out really well. Or I guess not that
Hmm.
old yet, but 12 years old plus, and yeah, it's just a really neat thing that you don't see in a whole lot of other games.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. So my next like massive bullet point as a note. So Espen says like we're kind of driving around in this rail car. We have fought some of these new spider boss or not bosses, but just regular enemy type things and whatnot. The next major part of this is the area called Bolshoi, and the note that I wrote down says Artyom reaches the theater station and reunites with Ranger Context, learns more about the Red Line conspiracy. And then that leads us into the next section, which is called Corbett. And Corbett is where Artyom infiltrates a major Red Line gathering and uncovers the truth. This is where we learn about the Reds' like actual plot against the Metros and like how they're gonna take over and whatnot. And this is where the game just turns Resident Evil at this point. Like it's just like bioweapons.
Like here comes the weapons. I guess since you mentioned that theater thing, I kind of forgot about it, but I thought something was kind of cool is when you're in that theater district, which is generally just you're there to collect ammo and upgrade your guns and whatnot, that standard kind of affair. But there's a part where like there's like a theater literally starts playing and like you can just stand there and it just goes through multiple acts. I thought that was kind of like interesting. Like you don't have to, but like it's just like, that's kind of like and at first I thought like I had to watch it from the back and I realized, I could just walk up right to the front, like
Yep.
But I thought that was
think
kind of a neat one. I didn't stand through the whole thing. I kind of stood there for a couple of minutes and said, "Oh, that's pretty cool."
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is neat that they have all that type of stuff because I think that that totally comes from the DNA of Half-Life. Where shit's just going on in the world around you, and whether or not you're there for it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that too. I thought that was really neat.
But yeah,
Um,
once you do find the Reds, though, you kind of learn of that like they're pretty much trying to make like a bioweapon, like a Ebola type thing,
mhm.
once again, and really just try to like cleanse, the population. Oh, it's just fine. It's just like, okay, we got 25,000 people left. How many more can we get rid of?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure the thought process behind all of that.
No, there's a whole lot of thought going
all,
on.
all I can say is that the Reds are struggling to get people to convert. Like that's there's so many notes in this game too that talk about that specifically about how they have been trying to convert people over to the Reds forever and whatnot. And that nobody wants to be part of a communist party, especially with like how bad the living conditions are. And I love that we can go through like D6 through the ranger section and whatnot, and like it's still dark and dusty and gloomy and bad and whatever, but like it feels like an actual society, whereas like the Reichs or whatever, insanely oppressive. Like I said, when we were going through all like just like the random interrogation little cells and like the murder rooms and like like the shit like that. Now we're going across like we're getting back to like red territory and whatever, and we're just seeing just bag after bag after bag of just bodies stacked on top of each other like throughout the metro tunnels and whatever, and just anybody that they think is infected, just fuck, they're gonna kill your ass, and whatever. um yeah, just highly oppressive, highly oppressive. So
Well, it must be that thing with like with the infection thing. It's like that. When you have such a little bit of or such a little population left, you don't want this infection thing just to spread and just I guess wipe everybody out. So you have to take these ballsy conditions and and just try to go with what seems best in the moment.
mhm.
I will say there is a part where I want to say this, but this is still while when you meet up with Pavel again, and he's showing you like almost like the Reds' main headquarters. And if you're in this part of the town, it seems like everything's kind of dialed in, which always seems like that, like at the core of communism. If you're at the core
Yep.
area, it's not bad. It's when you're on the outskirts it's kind of
Yep.
where it sucks.
Yep.
And they have a surplus of food. They have a surplus of all kinds of stuff in there, guns, all these things, and they're all shared and so on like that. Granted, as Pavel leads you through and gives you all these good things and all these handouts and whatnot, he then decides to turn you in as a ranger so they can interrogate you and figure out more
Yep.
about the group. So you thought
Yep.
this guy was helping you out. You thought he was a good communist, and no, he was a bad communist.
Yeah, always a bad commie, man.
Yeah.
Did you drink with him? Did you sit there and like slam down those drinks and whatnot?
Yeah, well, he does.
Yeah.
I thought it was just like you had to kind of do that.
Oh yeah.
I didn't think there was a choice.
So I just assumed that so you can drink with him, and then there's a couple other sections too where you can just walk up to a bar and order a drink or whatever. And yeah, your vision gets a little blurred and whatever. Like I was fully expecting there to be like some kind of A/B choice option here, where you drank too much and you passed out and then maybe something happened, or maybe you lose an item or some shit. Like I was fully expecting something like that, but it doesn't actually happen that way. So, but
Yeah,
yeah, them.
I always do like when there's like the visual effects and so on. Like, I always remember that in
Yep.
Grand Theft Auto 4. I thought like the fact that you could go out and get drunk and then go driving.
Yeah. It's pretty good. Pretty good.
But yeah, for that one there, I just thought that was more of like a cut scene in a sense, or an in-game scene where
Yep.
like you're drinking with him, you have one drink, you're like, have another one. Oh, okay, have another one. Then have a third one. Then all of a sudden, no, boom, down.
Yep.
And then you realize, oh, I was date raped.
Yep. Exactly. But yeah, fucking Pavel, dude. I don't know. I thought that he was gonna be another like con type character. I also thought about Bourbon throughout like your time with Pavel and whatever. And I'm just like, oh, surely he's gonna die eventually too. Pavel ends up just being like the character that just continually keeps returning, and he's kind of like, I don't know. I kind of view him as like maybe like a subplot antagonist or something. Maybe not like the total antagonist of the story, but like he just shows up so often throughout your play experience. That he's just a really interesting character. So I'm glad that like this ended up being like, oh no, he is still a piece of shit, and whatnot, and it puts that like revenge path onto Artyom at that point. Like He still needs to get out of there. He still needs to make it back to the Spartans and whatnot. And that's essentially like what this whole next section is us escaping the Reds now at this point, and then making our way back to Sparta. So,
but from this point on too, though, like you are like once you realize that Pavel has betrayed you and so on like that, you the whole rest of the game you are tracking him down. You're looking for Pavel at every single place you go to.
Yep. He is kind of a piece of shit. So, bastard. I'm trying to think. The boat section. Yeah.
You got like the toll. You got the ferryman.
Yep. No, I love this. Because again, like this is a piece of Exodus that is right at the start of the game and whatnot. But we learn about yet again another new enemy type that they just like literally the locals just called the shrimp and whatnot, and like they're creepy, just oversized fucking like crawdad looking things or whatever, and they like just burst out of the water at you and shit, as you're like moving along. And this is kind of like where my memory is getting blurred between Exodus and this game, but like I know for certain in Exodus, like you can definitely like fight the things if you're along the water's edge or whatever, like they will come bursting out at you and whatever. I remember in this game like being in that boat, is that guide's like pushing you along and whatever, and those things are like popping up on the sides of the boat and you're having to like shoot them off the sides of the boat and things like that. Cool design of a monster type. I thought an aquatic style monster was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was probably my favorite monster in the whole game, to tell you the truth. I thought that was really neat the whole way through.
Yeah.
And then once you're kind of back on the surface again later and they start popping out of the water, that was when I just realized like, nope, it's best just to pull out my compass and just run towards the end. Like I didn't fight any of them or anything like that. Just keep going.
Yep. Now, I'm actually surprised that there is no swimming mechanics, because I know this is a thing in Exodus as well. If you jump into the water, it just plays an animation where Artyom like falls in the water. He kind of looks around a little bit and he pulls himself up on the side of wherever you fell into. So like I was actually I'd be curious if they ended up doing any kind of swimming mechanics in the fifth game, whenever this comes out in 2039. Mostly because like there is so much cool shit you can do with aquatic mutants, and whatever. So
well, the weird thing I noticed in this game though is if you fall in the water like 2 or 3 times though, you'll get killed.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So if you fall in once, you kind of have the animation, you pull yourself out. I think you'd almost fall in twice sometimes. You pull yourself out. If you fall in a third time, you're in there, and then this big old fish thing comes swimming up and eats you.
Oh, shit.
Right. Yeah. I noticed that because there was one time I was trying to get across somewhere and I was just like, I thought I could make the jump. No. Thought I could make the jump. No. And then I did it again. And I was like, oh, I got eaten.
Yep.
And then there's some points too where that creature, like that area that I was having a hard time getting through because of the mask issue and the filter. There was one point where I went to run to try to jump across that thing, and you get an instant kill if you fall in the water against that boss. So because they don't want. Because I was hoping I was going to do that, where I jump across and then pull myself up on the other side. It didn't work.
Yep. Yeah, cool. Yeah, really. I mean, like the next major piece of this is we make it to Venice. We actually make it there, and Venice feels exactly like Polis. Like, in terms of like when you make it to Polis in the first game, you have been through so much shit leading up to this point and whatnot. So it's finally like a place to get some respite. You can take your time through, and I'm pretty sure this is where that kid's at. That you turn in the teddy bear for and all that.
I guess I was just at that strip club thing.
Oh, dude, the fucking. That's for our audience. There's a lot of sex shit in this game, like a lot. And,
there are always those weird moments in video games. Like if you talk about it, you're like, well, that's silly. I remember like when Mass Effect came out, I remember just like, there was that thing where like, you hear that at first, you're like, they got that kind of stuff. And they're, that's kind of cool. Do you really even need that? The second you're playing the game, you're like looking left and right. You're like, okay, we're going to see how we can get this.
Yep.
Gonna bang every single alien on this ship.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it kind of reminded me because there's another game out there that technically I think actually takes a lot from Metro, but it's actually pretty sweet. There's that Terminator game, and then there's also the RoboCop. They're made by the same creator. But some of the stuff in that one kind of remind me like they took some of these elements of this Metro game and then just went with it farther, because there's literally like a scene later down the line where like you meet back up with Anna again, and you think that you guys are both infected, so you have like a love scene or whatnot, but it
Yep.
kind of like cuts it off somewhat early and so on like that. Where
Yep.
like in that Terminator, when it goes like the full distance in there with the
Jesus.
epic Terminator music playing and everything,
Yeah.
it's that kind where you look left and right over your shoulders as you're playing
Yep.
because it's all first person view.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So it doesn't feel like a cutscene like in a movie or something like
Oh
that.
God. Yep. Yep. No,
But yeah,
because like
those
when
are
I
those moments that you're just curious. I just have to see.
100%, 100%. I did. I 100% did this playthrough. So I go, so first off, Venice is a fucking cool ass area. Like I really like the level design of this area and all that. It feels exactly like I said. It feels like Polis in the first game. Yet again, you can walk around and there's a billion conversations going on between people and whatnot that I thought were really interesting and well rounded and whatever. You go to your shops, you buy your, like upgrade your weapons, buy all your ammo, get all your shit and whatever. And like as I'm like working my way through this level or whatever, I noticed that on the right hand side, there's like this dude standing there in front of this door with this red curtain in front of it, and it just like literally just says sex shop like on the side. And I was like, huh, what is that? And I go in there, and yeah, dude, there's people having strip teases and things like that. You can go down below or whatever, sit in a little like lounge area or whatever, and just get strip teases done. And so I paid for the first one, let her do her thing or whatever, and I was like, surely there's an achievement for this. I paid probably a good 6 times just watching this chick just do the same fucking moves over and over and over, and nothing ever happened. I was like, God damn it, like wasted 6 good fucking rounds for that.
Yeah, exactly. Dang it. I was just trying to get the achievement.
Yeah. But yeah, a lot of that. But even then, I mean, like whatever, it's like, I mean, it's like, you see tits. I mean, cool. Like whatever. So
there was a time period that was almost unheard of in video games, so it still like felt like a mind-blowing point when you saw all these games kind of come out like, oh wait a second, this is a thing now.
Yep. And I guess it really wasn't. What's funny about this game too is like, because it's a Ukrainian based, development studio and whatnot, like that type of stuff is just normal over there. Topless girls on, like TV and fucking commercials and shit like that. Like a lot of my friends that are from that general region of the world basically say like sex is just like, it's just part of light, like like it's not demonized like it is out here in the States.
It's really just the US, because it's not Canada, it's not anywhere else. It's
really
kind of a weird one, so like but then again, we get more violence, so I don't know what's the better trade-off.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's one of those ones I'd be really bummed if my violence got censored.
Yeah, exactly. So after we make it through Venice, this whole time we're still searching for Pavel. There's a section called Sundown. This is where we go to the old church. And this is, I think that in the church, this is where we meet back up with the Spartans and Anna. And I think this is that cutscene where the door fucking explodes in front of us. Which is a really cool scene, man. So like, after all this shit, we make it through Venice. We're still searching for, Pavel and blah, blah, blah. We get told to go to this church, and that Anna's at the church and that the Spartans are at the church. And we go to the church and we kind of like inform them about what we found out about the Reds and like this bioweapon thing and blah, blah, blah. And, it's just a scene of like you standing there, you're talking to Anna and a couple of the other soldiers or whatever. And just like, there's like this massive wooden door in front of you, and just like this just huge fucking explosion just happens, like everything slows down time wise and whatnot, like, and pieces of the doors are flying and yada yada, and then like everybody like essentially like gets knocked out. You kind of wake back up. The Reds are like capturing Anna at this point and like taking her away and whatnot, and like you just kind of pass back out again. And then this is where, so Nightfall, I listed out each mission name. I just can't remember exactly what they all mean. But Nightfall, Artyom crosses dangerous surface areas and mutant nests while pursuing his objectives. So whatever the fuck that means.
Yeah, whatever that means.
Lots more mutant fights and things.
Yeah, because you do have those sections where you kind of just go through the mutant like section, and then you just got to blast your way through there. And so many times too, I just as I said, I learned that running was kind of the best thing.
Yeah,
That made it kind of just sometimes the easier is just to get through it.
yeah,
I also will say that like in this game, I kind of like once I got a couple of guns that I sort of liked, I stuck with those till the very end.
yep,
I It's like one of those ones like I had the Magnum pistol that from the first one with the silencer and upgraded sight, and that was like that thing was perfect as is. I get headshots like nobody's business. I'd have that shotgun that holds 6 rounds,
hmm,
use that one with its upgrades, and then I think I just had the AK-47, and I think I just ran with those guns
yeah,
upgraded the whole way through. Granted, I always kind of want to try other guns, but it's like sometimes at the same time, it's like, this was working for me.
yeah.
Don't need to just throw this one on the ground yet.
The one I really liked is the bolt action rifle or whatever.
Oh
Did
yeah,
you
yeah,
get to
yeah.
mess around with that one at all?
I don't know if I did. Now that I'm thinking about it, that might have been the first game I was thinking about the bolt action gun.
Yeah. It was one of the first guns that I chose right at the start of the game because it basically gives you like, you choose the weapons you want to play with or whatever in the gun range. And I used it for a while. Eventually I ended up dropping it. I ended up using it's kind of that belt fed style shotgun, that has like the rounds that kind of go around the edge of
Yeah,
it or whatever, and
the
you can kind
six
of
the
fill it up
six
with the
rounds.
six
Yeah,
round one.
yeah. That was the one I kind of used. Though I still, even from the first one, I'm not 100% sure which one's better to have, that one or just the double load shotgun.
I like the belt fed one just because you do have more rounds, into it and whatever. It just feels a lot more effective. I don't think it's as powerful as the double barrel shotgun. I don't think it does as much damage, but
No, and I don't think it reload. I almost feel like the double barrel I can reload it faster too. It's just like
yeah,
bop, boom, bop,
yeah,
boom, boom.
yeah,
Instead of having because the shotgun's great with the 6 rounds, but I notice like if you get to the point where like you're down to like 1 round, you need to reload it. Like it takes its sweet time, and then even like if
yeah,
the monsters keep coming, I mean you can fire it before it reloads all its rounds, but still.
yeah, yeah. So I use that, the pistol as well, just like fully upgraded silencer,
Yeah,
scope,
the
everything
pistol's
on it.
like the best one to take guys out with.
Oh yeah, yeah. And then I kind of alternated. Like I would use the AK. I kind of found a liking for the side load, machine gun or whatever that has like that piece that slides through the middle of it. Um, but but really, I mean, like again, a machine gun's a machine gun. Like they kind of act the same. They take the same ammo. It's like it's not too much different other than like a visual look to it and whatever and a sound.
Hmm.
But yeah, for the most part, as long as you have a silencer and a scope on most of your weapon, like you're fine. Like, like you're gonna do well, throughout the
Yeah.
game. Um,
Sometimes I will say though, like the 3 guns though, sometimes like when it gets kind of hectic, it's like because I can't remember there was a button that you had. It was like a combination with Y that you always had to press, but it would always I think it was in the menu, but it would switch your gun, which was kind of annoying because it was like
mhm,
because you press that with that. Oh no, yeah. I think you had to use it so you could go into like your secondary ammo section, so you could change your grenades. But every single time you win that secondary ammo thing, it would switch guns. They're probably not the
yeah,
same on PC because it's probably a separate button. But
yeah.
on the console, it's kind of annoying because then your gun would be different when you went back out of that menu.
Damn, damn. See, and okay, I'll bring this up just for the audience too, because you complained about it in the first game. So there totally is a section where the game wants you to story-wise grab a particular weapon, and it will get rid of the fucking weapon that you have in your hand. However, like as soon as that happened, I was like, fuck. I was like, no, I lost because I thought I lost my good machine gun or whatever. Looked to the right, and it literally just placed it on the fucking table to the right of where I was picking up the other weapon. I was like, oh, thank God. Had to text you immediately about that. I was like, hey,
Yeah,
just
watch
so you
out for
know.
that. Lose your gun. Yeah, at least there was. I didn't get stuck with like a flamethrower that it like was next to impossible to find more ammo for.
Yeah, yeah. So after we blow up or get blown up in the fucking church and all that, nightfall comes, and the next section is called Contagion, and this is where we really start to see the quarantine shit. The people like behind a lot of plastic with zippers shit on them and
Mhm.
whatnot. I think this is where that scene with Anna happens and all that you were talking about, or maybe that happens a little bit later.
Yeah, I think it actually is in the quarantine section actually where it
Is
is
it?
because they say that you and Anna might be infected or whatnot at this point,
Yeah.
and then they run some tests on you. Go, oh, never mind.
Yep. Yep. Um, yeah, I'm trying to remember what else. There's just a lot of sad shit going through this whole area. It's a lot of depressed and just very sick people, like
Yeah,
and I love the way they portray a lot of it too. And again, I took the time to like, this is about where I got to in my hardcore run, was about here. But I took the time to watch those people and whatever. And like, there's one dude that's just like kind of like hunched over. He's sitting in a chair and he's kind of like hunched over and he's just coughing, just profusely, just coughing and coughing and coughing. And if you sit there and watch him long enough, like a little bit of fucking blood like drops onto the ground and he eventually like falls down and he's like laying on, like basically on his elbows and one knee, just kind of like hunched over, just coughing and coughing. Eventually he kind of rolls over onto his side and starts to get into a fetal position and blah, blah, blah. And eventually like the animation ends right there, but it just shows, like how much more forethought the developer had into this of like, yeah, this is bad. Yeah, this is what it's doing to people. This is how it's affecting their bodies and making them, curl over and puke up blood and, shit like that and whatever. I thought it was really cool, just in world building stuff. So,
yeah, just how far you can watch these animations go and so on like that. Where so many times I always think about that. Like, just this goes with just games in general, is how much you just kind of walk past stuff in games without taking the time to absorb it all in. Granted, who knows if there's always enough time to absorb all the stuff, but like, you think about that, you're like, somebody worked really hard on that, and you just walk past that in like 2 seconds.
Yep. Yeah, no, I think about that with artists all the time in video games, especially environmental artists and whatever, because like you said, like a few of these sections, it's just like you can fight the mutants or you can just run. And like, the amount of shit that probably exists in those levels and whatnot that you just ran right past, that I ran right past, and like never really looked at. But again, like the massive credit to this environmental team and whatever. Like everywhere you go, there's just so many cool things that are going on, and it's really nothing. It's like looking at a window and seeing like some blinds hanging in the window, and the way that the animation and physics work when it comes to moving cloth and whatever at the time was fucking mind-blowing. There's I think it was the section that you were talking about with the when you get into the armored car or whatever that you can physically drive around on the rail cars and whatever. There's a scene of one of the characters, and it might be Pavel, I can't remember who it is, but somebody goes up to that car, grabs the piece of cloth that's over it and pulls it off. And this was like shown in showcases back in that right before that game came out, of like, look at our cool tech, look at what 4A is doing and blah, 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 and it shows cloth physics, and stuff. Like, it's so fucking good. Even in today's lens, it's like still really fucking good. I was like, God damn.
Yeah, well, that's like the thing. These games still like actually look fantastic and so on. And that's kind of like a lot of times how this kind of era is. It's like, even a lot of these 360 games, like still hold up really well. I mean, even if I was playing a little bit of, speaking of just even Gears, since it just kind of is in that similar vein, it's like even the technically fourth game, but the Gears Judgment or whatever, like you look at that one, and it's like tail end 360, but it's like, dude, it looks still super good. Like you almost, I mean, you can see if you put it next to a brand new game, you can see the differences. But like the overallness, it's like, dude, it still feels like, like you're watching a movie, it still gives you that immersive feel, know.
Yeah.
But yeah, from this point on, I think this is kind of like where we almost kind of realize that, okay, you got to kind of go stop. We kind of get an idea where Pavel is. We got to sort of stop the Reds from doing this bioterror weapon thing, and they're not going to release this on everybody. And then also we're still tracking down the Dark One, which I guess we haven't brought up that Dark One again too, but that's the other thing. So we're still looking for that Dark One. That's that little boy that we've met once, I want to say, by this point. Other than those like child flashbacks or whatever, we met we had to chase him through. I think Pavel was with us as well too. And he's like, get that Dark One. And, you're running after him and so on like that. And, he gets away. And towards the very end, well, he'll come into big play, but
Yeah. There's, this is where the narrative really hyper focuses in, like pretty much immediately after we figure out what the Reds are doing. We run back into Khan. Khan takes us through this like adventure type thing, like he always takes us through. We're learning more about Dark Ones. He's basically like imposing on us so heavily. You fucked up in the first game, fix this. Go save these people. They're not here to kill us. They're here to save us, and blah blah blah. The chase scene though, dude, when you're in that fucking rail car and the Reds are chasing you alongside, like it felt like fucking Uncharted, dude. There's this whole section where you're just like in a rail car. There's other metro lanes around you, and there's all these other cars that are coming up against you and whatever. And it's an on rail shooter section again, but again, just the amount of money that was dumped into this section, I was just like, hell yes. The entire time I was playing, I was just like, I had the biggest smile on my face, just mowing down Reds, as they're driving by and stuff, dude. The whole chase section, that was such a cool fucking level.
Yeah.
I loved it.
That's a cool action bit right there, and as I said, if I remember correctly, we kind of just go on the hunt for Pavel by about this point. And you start to get closer and closer to him to where you eventually finally breach across him.
Yep.
And you kind of get your ending battle confrontation with his part of the story.
Yep. Yeah.
And I don't think there's like a choice where you could you can choose to save or kill him, I think.
Yeah. I chose to spare him. I did not kill him.
I didn't kill him because I chose it was one of those ones, I guess, to kill him, you have to shoot him.
Yeah.
Because I realized if you press the other button, which I didn't, I thought was going to give you an option. It's just like you spared him.
Yeah. And again, like because I spared him, I can't say for certain to you or the audience whether or not that is a canonical choice or not. But I am hyper curious about Exodus now, and because I saved Pavel, I'm so curious if Pavel pops back up somewhere in Exodus. So it'll be cool.
Well, I know that this kind of goes a little bit farther, but when I was looking at the endings, the one that says that's if I'm not mistaken, the bad ending, I don't think I got that one because there was stuff in there that I did not remember seeing.
Okay.
So
yeah, I'd be curious what your ending ended up being, because basically for the audience, just kind of speedline the rest of this game. We find the Dark One. We make him our friend. He's our little fucking companion that we dress up in clothes and everything. And
we drag him around like some weird child, or almost literally it feels like we're kind of hiding an alien, like in that Paul movie.
Yeah. And really what Artyom,
and I like when people find out that's it's a Dark One, whoa, that's not a little kid. Get his scrubby little hands off me.
Yep. And I thought that scene was really cool. So eventually, again, we find the Dark One. We kind of make him our friend. He starts to follow us, blah, blah, blah. We want to take him to Miller. We want to take him to Captain Miller and basically prove to Miller, no, these things aren't pieces of shit. They're actually here to help us and blah, blah, blah. And when we finally make it back to Polis, so this whole time, we're trying to make it back to Polis, which is where all the factions are at, more or less. And they have the big round table, style thing where they're all discussing over, conflicts and things like that. And bringing the Dark One to the middle of that, organization type thing and whatnot. And Spence says, everybody freaking out, going oh, what the fuck is that thing? And blah, and this, that, and the other. And
then when the Dark One touches that head general guy or whatnot, and gives him a vision.
Yep.
Because the Dark One's able to share you and the Dark One kind of get you could talk to each other telepathically and everything like that. But if the Dark One touches everybody else, they can kind of let them be experienced.
Yeah, actually, there is a really cool little touch on section here where so the Dark One touches the general, and then that basically Spence is saying basically enters your mind of what this general is, his past, his history, and all that, and it fully explains what is going on. That I will slaughter if I try to replicate this, but more or less it's his direct orders to create the bioweapon, how he's going to distribute it, how he's going to kill everybody, do all the things and whatnot. And it basically just unveils the total plot of the Reds at this point, direct from that colonel or sergeant or whatever his rank is, direct from his view. Which I thought was really tasteful. I thought it was really cool, because he had so much mystery leading up to this point, and then finally to get it from that perspective was just hell yeah. And that's one piece that I will say again about this game through its DLC and everything else. the amount of mixed perspectives that you can get in this game, not only through these flashbacks, but through playing through other characters and whatever in the DLCs, is wonderful. The way that they can frame everything, still keep the continuity of what Metro Last Light is, but have it from so many different perspectives, I thought was super cool. So, eventually we return back to the botanical gardens. This is where the child Dark One contacts the surviving Dark Ones and asks for their help. And this is where everything comes to a head, where everybody's going to D6. Like, you know, the Reds, the Reich, Spartans, now the Dark Ones, like everybody's fighting over D6. And it's basically like the finality of the game is like the massive war that goes on in D6 essentially. And you're trying to stop, you know, the Reds from getting there essentially. So in my battle sequence, I fight the Reds, I get knocked out, I wake back up, and the Reds have essentially advanced on top of us at this point. There's no hope. Everybody's gonna fucking die. But there's a bomb there, and Artyom reaches up, grabs the handle of the bomb, turns it, you know, or whatever, sacrifices himself, and kills everybody in the fucking metro, essentially, to save humanity. That's the ending that I have only ever gotten in all my playthroughs.
Trying to think if that's the one I got. It sounds weird. For some reason, I remember the rest of this game. I'm having a harder time remembering the ending that I necessarily had there. For some reason, it doesn't feel like that's exactly what I have. I don't remember Artyom dying there at the end.
Okay. So the other ending is Artyom actually lives and whatnot, which is supposedly supposed to be the canonical ending, which will lead into Exodus. Again, like the amount of times that I've beaten this game, this is my fourth run of the game, getting the same ending over and over, I just assumed that was the canonical ending, but Exodus exists. so Artyom can't be dead, you know, and the Spartans can't be dead. Miller can't be dead, you know, like all these things. So anyways, that's basically how my game ended, you know, was Artyom sacrificing himself and killing everything and everyone. Essentially, is the end of the Metro series. So
yeah, because I almost want to say, yeah, I don't remember him blowing himself up. I remember him kind of surviving. I don't know how I necessarily got that.
It's all based off karma. It's all based off the karma system. So
yeah, because I'm sort of just even rereading these endings here too, and it seems like, you know, it says Artyom on the good ending is about to detonate D6, but then the baby Dark One and the surviving Dark Ones intervene, stop the massacre, and save the Rangers and the others at the last moment. Yeah. See, I kind of remember that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't remember him dying there and so on like that. And it even says like something that...
That's rad. If you got that ending as your first ending, that's fucking rad that you pulled that off.
You know, yeah, and it's weird because it's like I did, you know, I felt like I got some of those, like, I guess, negative karma parts, but yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so basically your ending, you know, the surviving Dark Ones, I mean, even in my ending, the kid, you know, the child Dark One and all the ones that still existed in the botanical gardens after, you know, Artyom tried to nuke them in the first game, basically just leave, you know, and they're like, you know, in my game, you know, it was very much like, oh, thank you, Artyom, for, you know, like essentially killing everybody that wanted to kill us, you know, we're gonna go live our best life, see ya, you know, and like just basically walk off into the sunlight. Whereas your ending, they basically say that they will be back, you know, they're gonna leave, but they're gonna be back. Humanity is essentially saved at that point, you know, like the Spartans are the top faction, you know, and life's good, you know.
Yeah.
But there's still an apocalypse going on, and that's very much where we're going to lead directly into Exodus. And Exodus, I won't give away too much for the listener, but like Exodus more or less is them getting out of the metro and trying to explore what actually happened during the 2013 nuclear explosions, you know, like what is actually going on in the world. So the game is getting grander and grander, but I'd say that as a whole, I think I like Last Light the best out of the two that we've now played for the podcast. I think that it has a very, very well driven story. Artyom gets so much more, not even like screen time per se, because we played as Artyom throughout the whole game, but like we learn a lot more about Artyom, his notes, his interactions with all the different characters and whatnot. Again, the foreshadowing that happens leading up to certain areas in this game and whatever is just next to none. Like, it's so well written, it's so well done, so well paced. Again, the overhaul with Redux and just all the visual design. Like I said, I can't talk enough about like the very first time you go to the surface and there's a fucking storm going on, and just like the way it looks, the way that like you see flags off in the distance, waving through the wind, and just so much rain coming down, you're wiping your face and it's just muddy and dirty, and just like, I don't know, everything about this game is just, it's an evolution of the first game, all for the better, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I kind of agree too. Now, granted, I think why this one works real well is because of the first one, because without you couldn't just play the second one and get that same kind of feel without kind of going for the first one, And the first one, don't get me wrong, I did dig quite a bit and so on like that. I just had some of those parts where you get kind of stuck or turning around or just a little bit more confused on some of the story elements and so on. And I think as time has gone on, it's like, you're absorbing a little bit more and so on. Like I feel like I still understand the story better by this point, though I feel there's still so much more to like divulge into and so on. But yeah, as I said, for the most part, other than getting stuck with a couple mass sections where I had to keep restarting, like it was a straightforward run for me. Like I never felt like I got to some area where it's like, dude, where am I going? Why does the compass keep leading me to a door that doesn't want to open? Like there was none of that in here. So it felt like just everything was just dialed in gameplay wise, dialed in level design, all that kind of stuff. And then, it was just kind of a cool experience, though I still think it's weird that they had those DLCs. That's all I gotta say. That's like such a strange one to like just tuck those away in there.
Now, one other brief comment that I'll make, and I made it earlier. This game actually feels more like a horror experience than its first game did. There's a lot of sections, like I said, just the tension building that they do in this, where we're a survival horror podcast. I wouldn't exactly put this in survival horror per se, but like definitely a horror. Like it has DNA of horror in it and whatever.
Yeah, a lot of first-person shooters in general kind of have that like horror theme as at least one of their kind of like subgenres. I always look at Wolfenstein and Doom and all that stuff. Like literally, you'll get just as scared playing those games as you will playing like almost Resident Evil or Silent Hill or any of those ones.
Yep. I think that difficulty has a big portion of that. Again, like if you play on hard, like survival hardcore mode or whatever, like don't go the full run like I did with this like Ranger hardcore mode. Because like I said, losing all your UI elements, like I can do it now because like I have a fresh run in my head and I know what to touch and I know where to go. But anyways, you can make this a more survival horror-esque type experience with limited inventory, like items and ammo and blah, 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 and things like that. I also think that, it's something that just makes me insanely excited to finally get around to Exodus, like we've been talking about. You mentioned, a handful of months ago when you were just like, oh, we should play Awakening, as our first VR experience on this and whatnot. I'm glad we made this choice to actually play through the series instead of diving right into Awakening and whatnot, because I think that we're gonna have so much more context by the time we get to that game, and I think it's just gonna be all the much better for it. So
yeah, I think it'll be cool. Plus, for the fact that once again, I've had these games sitting forever. I bought them a long time ago. I bought them twice even. That's the thing. I had them bought them 2 times over because they sell them so cheap that you just feel like, why not? And so I'm kind of glad I was able to finally go through them after so many years of them just sitting there on the hard drive. So no, that's really cool. I look forward to, because I said Metro Exodus was the only one I did actually start up, but I probably only played it for like a half an hour or 40 minutes or something like that, and then just never got back to it. So I look forward to actually really getting into that game and going deep into it and seeing what that's all like.
Yep. Yep. Oh, one other brief thing before we log. The DLC.
Oh yeah.
So again, the Anna DLC is basically right at the start of the game. You're playing Overwatch. It's a really short section or whatever, but again, a different perspective. Um, Pavel's Pavel's leads right up to him getting or is it right as he gets captured and then he escapes? Is that the DLC?
I think so. I think that's what it was.
Okay, so there's that one, and then there's Khan, and Khan is with a completely different character in a separate metro tunnel. Meanwhile, and he's talking about Artyom. He's just like, "Oh, our Artyom's over there. We're gonna meet him, at whatever." Um, and his is a really slow DLC. It's like a really slow journey. It's another slow walk type thing, but it has so much flavor text when it comes to echoes of the past, dark ones, blah blah blah. Anomalies, shit like that. I thought was super cool. And then I played a couple of the other ones that you were mentioning are kind of like challenge based style ones. The one that I can tell you is I forgot what the hell it's called. It basically puts you in the shoes of a Reich right at the start of the Reds attacking D6. And
That's
you're
cool.
in a little section. You're like in this little area that you can't leave, but you have like ammo sitting all over the place and whatever. And you get this just massive just machine gun that has a 500-pound or 500-round clip that you just slap to the side of it or whatever. And you just sit there and just it's just a total action section, dude, and it's just wave after wave after wave of just like these reds coming at you and shit. It was pretty fucking rad.
That's pretty sweet. I'll have to pull that one up. That sounds kind of cool if they put some other ones like in there.
Yeah.
Too, where it's just like that, because they do give you a lot. It feels like there's like 12 of them or something like you could choose from.
Yeah. I want to say there was like three or four DLCs in total that came out for Last Light that are all bundled now, into the Redux version. But yeah, I think you're right. It's like 9 or 12 because they had like 3 episodes each or something like that.
Yeah, so I think each pack had that or so. So there's quite a bit there, which is kind of neat. It just gives you more extra stuff for the game and so on.
Yeah.
And I think even like initially that Ranger difficulty came with the pre-order, which I know is slightly controversial at the time. What, you didn't pre-order the game? Like,
yeah, can't play the hard mode. Yeah, but
which this gonna make sense. I kind of assume that, like, yeah, if you probably like if you are probably a real hardcore gamer that's probably going to enjoy that Ranger mode, you most likely bought the game early.
Yeah,
Yep.
But
yeah, no, I look forward to the other 2 Metro games, and then I guess the brand new one too, as well as later in the year. But yeah, no, these are cool experiences. As I said, I'm glad I finally played them. Just stacking the 2 together, it definitely gives me even more appreciation. Because I felt like even with the first one, the only downfall is I felt like I was a little bit late to the party on that one. Like it was that thing where it's like, this game would have been really cool if I didn't play Resistance, Gears of War, Fallout, Borderlands, yada, 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 all those ones. Rage, all those games of that time period that all kind of have the same kind of core, story, post-apocalyptic Mad Max thing going on, but no, by finishing Last Light, it's like I got even more kind of like enjoyment out of it and really enjoyed the journey.
Yeah. I fully agree. This is it's just another one of those titles that just hits me perfectly every time I play it. And it's just like I mean, I'm glad that I waited as long as I have to replay this because it's been about probably 6-7 years, since last replay of this. But yeah, it's just wonderful. It's just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experience. First person narrative driven games are some of my favorites, and this game definitely has it. So yeah, I'm gonna definitely say play it. Play the first game first, of course. But
yeah, we gave a rating on the last one, I think.
Yeah.
What game I think we trying to think. No, I guess we must for some reason I felt like we missed a rating on a game, but whatever. I think I gave Metro 1 like a B. I still would say I probably like this one closer to like a B plus going on, maybe like an A minus, like right about there. As I said, I think the downfall is just playing all those other games that are in that same ballpark, kind of dilutes it a little bit for me. That's the thing is I felt like if this was the game that you came across without playing those other ones, it would have stood out like really high.
Yeah.
But like once you kind of went through the rest of those other games, I still think it kind of falls there. But I do think this one improved over the first one. So that's why I definitely give it a little bit higher rating.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think this is a proper, like you said, like low A, high B, somewhere around that range. Totally just refines what the first game did. Has a great story that keeps you engaged the entire experience. Nothing ever feels like it's dragged out for too long. And frankly, I mean, it's the reason why I went immediately upon seeing credits. I was like, yep, doing that again, and made it halfway through, before this episode again. So, no, it's wonderful. It's a great game. I definitely say pick up. And it goes on sale constantly. Constantly, this whole
Well-
series goes on sale.
Well, that's like the one. It's like, I mean, that's why I owned it twice. And sometimes there's even times where I'll see it on another system, and I'm like, I should just buy it on that. I mean, you could buy it on Switch even if you really want to. It bums me out. They said that there was a Wii U version of it. I kind of wish they would have put that out because
No, really.
I always get kind of excited if they did, because it makes me wonder what they would have done with the Wii U gamepad.
Yeah.
Like you would have had maybe that little compass and all that kind of stuff down on there.
Yep.
But yeah. So I feel like they sell these. I said this in the last one when we talked about Metro 1. But they sell these games almost too cheap. It makes them feel like they're kind of like knockoff games or something like that. Like there's no reason these games should go on sale for like $2 and $3 a piece. It's like it's almost kind of a slap in the face to actually how decent they are.
Yeah. No, I definitely feel that. I definitely feel that.
I mean, this game should be on sale for $9.99 at like the lowest, and that's each one.
Yeah.
They're like, they do the same problem that Warner Brothers does. Warner Brothers does that same thing too, where they sell their games for like $4.99, which once again, if you bought the game for $100 when it first came out, you feel like you got kind of gypped when it's a year later, they're selling it for like pennies to the dollar.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And it's like the thing is like the game's really good. Like, I don't know what you do. There's no, you sell a game for really cheap when you kind of go, okay, it was just kind of okay. Let's see if we can get some money out of it.
Yeah.
Maybe some people pick it up when like it's on sale, but yeah, there's really no reason not to buy this on any system because it's just there and it's cheap. And yeah, I think even its regular price is like $9.99.
Yeah, exactly. It's cheap as hell and just such a great ride, man. Even just for like a single run, like if you just want to play it once, like one and done, for a couple bucks, fuck, man, there's so much content here. It's worth your time.
Yeah, you're getting the full game. Once again, you're getting the full game experience, even though it looks like it's a very bargain bin discount. But yeah, beyond all that good stuff, check out more survival horror podcasting. It's Silent Evil on YouTube and Spotify over at Old Man Orange Podcast. Till then, I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I am Cameron.
And we'll see you some other time.